Welcome to the Money GPS. You came here for the truth, so let me unveil that for you. You've seen it each and every step of the way as we move through this cycle, as we move forward into a crisis, one in which people are not prepared for. But I'm going to get you there. I'm going to give you the information you need. In this video, we will talk first about what's coming down the line. And this is important because the financial system is directly interconnected with everything that happens in the economy, the jobs, and everything that relates to you. Quote, the danger is business and financial cycles turning down simultaneously, which can lead to longer lasting recessions. A decade of QE has fueled frothy housing markets, and we could be entering the other side of this soon as housing affordability is stretched and debt service ratios could rise sharply. I think it's important everybody gets wise to what has happened over this period. Imagine something we have never seen before, where they're simultaneously going through expanding of the debt and deficits, they're pumping in the quantitative easing, the recession is kicking in at the same time, the central bank backed itself into a corner at 0% interest rates and now can't get back out. They can't do this, of course, without causing a problem. And I think that's the most important factor here. When I look at interest rates, when I see what's happening through the cycle, I notice this and I see the patterns, and I've acknowledged that and I've written it down. I've wrote 2 books. And I think what needs to be understood at this point is that it's not a simple matter of let's wait until the markets bottom out and then I'm going to put my cash in because I'm so smart. That's not what happens. The vast majority of people during the worst parts of the crisis simply run and flee. It's just the nature of it all. It's the same thing with the economy. People tighten up, they stop spending, they start worrying, and even though they might have cash there, even though they might be okay through the entire period, they're still employed and so on, they constrict. And that is a very normal thing for most people. So don't assume that we're going to just be able to pinpoint everything. There's much more to it than that. And we see what the central banks have been doing all along, and this happens to be yet more cause for concern for those who are overexposed and overleveraged. Now, the Fed Governor, Michelle Bowman, signaled support for a more aggressive path of rate hikes. Quote, based on current inflation readings, I expect that an additional rate increase of 75 basis points would be appropriate at our next meeting. By the way, it's just in a few weeks, as well as increases of at least 50 basis points in the next few subsequent meetings, as long as the incoming data supports them. So, hey, things are heading the way they are right now. We're going to increase by 75 basis points at 0.75%. Imagine right now, just imagine for yourself, that interest rates, Fed funds rate at 2.5% in a matter of a few weeks. The maximum, the top of that. 2.5%. That's where it was during the previous cycle. And already we are there. We were at 0 a moment ago, and now we're moving up the top band to 2.5%. This is significant because of the rising borrowing costs. Okay, look at this. The age of credibility for central banks is over. This is a Bloomberg article. I had to double check. Is this a joke? Is it, what is this all about? Is it an opinion article, actually? Remarks, yeah. So, inflation blunders have destroyed the trust that's anchored the global financial system since the end of the gold standard. Well, I just wanted to point out this has nothing to do with this article or the author or anything. What we're looking at here is a situation in which the central banks had said, no, inflation is transitory. We're okay. Everything's all good. We can do this. We can keep interest rates at rock bottom. We can continue to print money. But look at what occurred. They completely flipped, and that's the problem. That's the big problem for their credibility. But of course, you will see what happens here. Their credibility wasn't challenged as they were cutting interest rates, cutting them too low for too long. No. It's when they increased. That's when suddenly we're all concerned about the credibility of the Federal Reserve. Mexico delivers record rate hike, says more increases are coming. So here we go. Mexico Central Bank, 75 basis points. My friends in Mexico, I want to give you a thumbs up. The central bank seems to be doing what the other central banks around the world have done. Even just look at North America. Both Canada and the United States went for the so-called jumbo rate increases. Okay, so they're doing this. They're all doing it. Watch out. Hong Kong's benchmark borrowing costs quadrupled in a month as the city's de facto central bank drained liquidity at a record pace to stem the currency's weakness. So we are seeing basically all central banks around the world doing the same thing. And what does that translate to you? Come on, Money GPS, just spell it for me. It's higher borrowing costs. And that, maybe you've already paid your mortgage, maybe you've already paid your car, maybe it's just you on a limited output per month, limited expenses per month, and you're not that concerned. But there's something else here. We got to look at the wider economy, because the businesses that you work at or you associate with in some way, maybe you got a client, maybe you got a customer, and suddenly they're not getting people through the door. Their customers are not walking by. This is a problem. You see the knock-on effect, you see that domino effect. This does have an impact on the average person. Okay. Germany warns of Lehman-like contagion from Russian gas cuts. Gas emergency level elevated to the second highest alarm stage. Minister warns that high prices could trigger market collapse. Isn't that interesting? They're using the Lehman sort of situation, but only in the whole, contagion factor. Germany looks at potential rationing of natural gas after Russia cuts supply. The potential move could push Europe's biggest economy into a recession. So this is important to see, because you look at the prices people are paying right now, the expectation is that they will go higher. At the same time, we watch as shortages build in anything that's important. Okay, but even in, you've seen those videos online before, people, looking for Popeye's chicken or whatever it is, and suddenly there isn't any, and there's this huge outrage. There was the whole thing about the chicken sandwich, where they didn't have any more chicken sandwiches. People were freaking out. Okay, this is a situation in which if they're going to freak out about a chicken sandwich, they're certainly going to have a problem when there's no gasoline, when there's no natural gas, nothing to heat their homes, and of course, don't even get me started on the food. What happens when the store shelves empty? Predatory lenders are making money off of rising gas and food prices. So these whole predatory lenders, you know what it is, the money marts and, pay advance and all these different things, depending on where you live around the world. I'm sure they have got different names, but it's the same thing everywhere. And what do? They charge a very high percentage. People are desperate. They get in and they hope to pay it off soon. And if not, they're really paying a lot of money. It's usually, small sums of money too. And just people in desperation. Maybe they maxed out their credit cards and so on. But I think it's important to look at why this is the case. Now, somebody might have poor management of money and so on, but let's just take a step back for a second. Not necessarily these companies or what have you. Just look at the expenses right now. And you watch credit card usage has been going up dramatically at this time. And it was already bad enough. But this is important because of what it will do. Again, central banks hike, that increases the rates that people are paying. And so the slowdown here, you see that there's, these two sides, the economy and the markets. And you watch how they really have this synergy in between the two. So never look at one without looking at the other. They must be understood in unison. Ken Griffin moves Citadel from Chicago to Miami following crime complaints. Hedge fund founder has a long-running feud with the governor over the crime issues, and he said, let's go, we're off. How many different companies have moved, particularly from East Coast, whether it's New York, Chicago, and so on, to Miami or to Florida in general? I mean, one after the other after the other. If they didn't move the entire business, they set up new offices there. I've seen that all over the place. And at the same time, we're watching companies now just kicking people to the streets. We haven't officially begun a recession at this point, and yet look at what's going on already. Companies, their stocks have been absolutely punished. You look at what's going on with, the companies themselves just booting people to the streets. Not a good sign. Not a good sign, especially if the situation will be prolonged. Okay, this is Layoffs Tracker. Layoffs Tracker. You can get the links to this and anything else that I show you in the link in the description under the sources, okay? Latest layoffs. You see Netflix talked about that, and different companies like Ritual and Bungalow and all these different ones. And just to note here, super low through 2021 and now suddenly has accelerated along with everything else. Okay, so if you are interested in this site, I just thought it was interesting because it tracks those. So laid off in June, 17,000 so far. So January 2021 up until the present, 63,000 employees laid off. And we will see if that number starts to accelerate. I'm sure you'll be aware of it. Now, you stayed until this point here. Fantastic. Fantastic. Now, this was an interview done on USA Watchdog. And I love what they do here with USA Watchdog. By the way, he was one of my first interviews that I ever did, Greg Hunter. And they actually transcribe what was done in the interview. So he's got somebody writing that all out, which is amazing because, you know, you can just get the quick points anyway. Catherine Austin Fitz, I'm sure you've heard of her before. Something interesting. Okay. I won't read you the whole thing, but the key line here, this is not a downturn, or a turn down, excuse me. I'll read that again. This is not a turn down. This is a takedown. What does she mean by that? Okay, look. They injected $5 trillion into the economy that went to the insiders, and they used the shutdown of the economy run by the outsiders. Now, the outsiders want to open another business, and they're going to radically raise the cost of capital to the outsiders. What's going to happen is that $5 trillion is going to buy more assets more cheaply. To me, this is part of centralizing the control of the economy. They are asserting very significant central control. This is not a turn down. This is a takedown. Fantastic. Fantastic. The way it was explained here just really opens up my eyes, or a light bulb's going off. And I know these are the things that I agree. I mean, I know this, but just to read it there. This is being done as part of this cycle, a cycle I continue to harp on over and over again. I hope people are aware of what's happening. I hope they can see each and every step is all part of this grand plan. They collapse everything. They take advantage of the situation. Who stands to gain? I'll tell you right now. Seems like the central banks happen to gain a lot through these periods, don't they? And who do the central banks work directly with? You know, it's those big establishments. You see who the primary dealers are. You see who's shareholder of the Federal Reserve, who was there on that very night on Jekyll Island in 1913. All of this information is available to us, and I think people should be getting wise to it. So you see what happens. I made my point clear through this video. We watch the central banks going through this cycle. We watch the economy turning down. And it's going to get to a certain point at which they start to turn the machines back on again. And it's in that moment where we find foundation for the markets. And the economy, might lag behind. It's usually the way it is. The market reacts quicker to everything. So anyway, I hope you appreciated this information. It was as straightforward as I could possibly give it to you. If you found it informative, hit that thumbs up button. I want to thank you for that. And just a quick point on the post that I did about, other creators and so on. I showed my analytics, and there was a few creators there. I'm not saying anything wrong against those creators. I don't know what they say on their channels. I'm simply was just showing you the analytics. Like I said, I don't know what they do. I was making a joke about it. The analytics, they're designed in a way to get you not to know what's happening. There's so many better indicators. It's all about increasing watch time. This entire website that you're watching this from, it's all about increasing watch time. And that was kind of the whole point that I was making there. But anyway, that's a whole little rant. I hope you appreciate it. Thank you. See you on the next one.